welcome to RetroLogic episode 76. I'm Dan Caparello, here with John Cummins and Sam Wagers. We took a week off, guys, because my mom was in town and I wasn't feeling well, and we were like, what are we even going to talk about? So sometimes you just got to take a week off, you got to regroup. So here we are, grouped again, regrouped. And
it's only 1 week, but it feels like it was forever.
That's how it goes with RetroLogic. It's become such a routine in my week that when I miss it, it just like throws the whole world off. The whole world just like, it bends to the schedule of RetroLogic. So yeah, I don't know how anybody else out there was doing, but obviously, there were riots and chaos and, famine, because there was no episode last week.
Well, Dan takes off, and I was like, what can I do at this time? Because I already have it scheduled out, with home life. So I was like, I guess I'll just record my own podcast in this time slot. So podcast recording went on for me. I just did a little micro episode of my show instead.
What game did you do? Was it Wario Blast or was it?
Yeah, it was Wario Blast. Sweet. Yeah,
that was really good.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
I like the little mini episodes you do. It's just you talking about a game you love. That's cool. Maybe I'll do one of those in a midweek thing, because there's games that I love that nobody ever talks about. But RetroLogic isn't just a podcast. It's a whole community of retro gamers. You can visit retrologic.games for our Discord link, fair trade merch, blog posts written by our very own Sam Wagers, and you can dive into our family of podcasts, including Retro Groove, a music history podcast, and On Topic Retro, which is a podcast dedicated to one video game per episode, hosted by our very own John Cummins. There's so much stuff happening over at RetroLogic. You got to go check it all out to believe it. See it to believe it. Some housekeeping. John, do you want to announce our Retro Rewind game for April, which has already started, but it's going for a month, so you can still play it?
So yeah, I think I had this ready to announce for last week's show that we didn't have, but as the community wanted, ToeJam and Earl is the winner. So we'll be playing, and I actually played some today. So there you go.
Yeah,
that's ToeJam and Earl.
And it was actually funny because you threw that in for me, but I didn't even vote for it, but it won anyway.
Yeah.
So,
it barely won. There's a lot of people that wanted to play Rise Star, so we'll see. That I'll probably leave the games in and add a game, and then do another poll.
It's a good idea.
The next time, and it won't always be Genesis. The next one I'm going to do is probably going to be a different console. So,
but yeah, I played a little bit today too. I have a ton of nostalgia for ToeJam and Earl, so I'm just breezing through it. But if some of the community members are having a real hard time with it, and I'm trying to coach them, me and Adam are trying to coach them through ToeJam and Earl.
It's a very obscure game, gameplay wise.
Yeah, I
forgot how different it is.
And one of the things that I didn't even realize until people were asking questions is how knowledge is power in that game. What presence do you have? What do the enemies do? What's not an enemy? What does the phone ringing mean? There's so many weird things
I can't remember. Are the presents randomized?
So the presents are totally randomized. Now, when you open a present, you learn what that present is. Yep. Anytime you get that present again for that playthrough, you know what it is. So it behooves you to open all of your question mark presents as early as you can, because in the late game, you're going to need to save certain presents for situations.
You totally want to get the was it the jetpack?
Yeah, wings, jetpack,
or whatever,
slingshot. You don't want rocket boots. Rocket boots are suicide. But you do want.
What I was gonna say, you want to find out which ones are rocket boots fast.
High tops are good. Tomatoes are good. Or I guess it's called slingshot, because there's one that's raining tomatoes, and that one's not good. Because there's presents that will just straight up kill you. It's this game is one of the earliest roguelike games. It's totally random.
It is a lot. It's a lot more fun than I'm having way more fun now.
Yeah.
Than when I was a kid playing it, actually. Because like I totally did not understand this game as a kid. I had a buddy that had it, and it just like totally blew my mind.
Well, I'll tell you, it is way more fun in multiplayer. So if you can get another person with you to play it on NSO, or actually the Sega Genesis collection on Switch also has online. So if you can find someone to play online with you, like totally, it's going to make the experience so much better because you share present knowledge and you can like save each other and that kind of thing. So, and it's just a lot more fun in co-op. Anyway, we are having that discussion and more over in the Discord. So if you want to jump in with us and play some ToeJam and Earl, please do that. Let's do our icebreaker though, since we all bought games this week. Sam, you went all John on us with your list of games this week.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's 3DS eShop. I do want to say one more thing about the Discord though, is that we had a wonderful extended conversation about a Donkey Kong RPG that doesn't exist.
Yes.
So if you want a place where you can do that, join the RetroLogic Discord.
Yes.
And
yes.
That could have totally spawned off into its own podcast here shortly by the sounds of it.
I wouldn't mind it, honestly. Yeah. It sounds like a great concept. Let's make up a video game.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
I used to do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I also buy games now and play them.
Speaking of...
Yeah, in terms of actual physical game, I had just kind of like a random... One of those games that I'd kind of like wish listed a little bit and just wait for a good deal on and make random offers on eBay. The Ooze for the Genesis. I'd heard about this. I thought it sounded interesting. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but as I understand it, it's like almost like you could call it like an open world centipede, almost like you're an ooze and you eat things to get bigger.
Yeah, open world snake.
Yeah,
snake. Yeah,
more so than centipede.
But it's...
I think I was thinking snake.
It's very weird. Like, I owned it for a little while and I played it for a bit, and it's very obscure. Like, actually, it kind of reminds me of ToeJam and Earl because you don't really know what's going on until you just experiment and try stuff, and it's all top down. The graphics are pretty incredible, actually. They do a really good job with like the whole like ooze animation and like where you populate and where you disappear from. And the soundtrack is banging, so there's definitely a lot to like there. But maybe
it definitely seemed pretty unique.
Yeah,
and that's why I thought it was worth a pickup because it was pretty cheap. So
yeah, very cool.
At least not like a bank breaker. And then the other thing is that there was a big Sega sale on the eShop, so all the Sega published games, including Atlas games especially. So I decided to just kind of load up another like $60 onto my 3DS eShop account and buy as much as I could with it, which winds up being a lot when you're filling out the rest of it with like Game Boy games that are $3 each.
Mm-hmm.
So the main thing is I got the remainder of the Etrian Odyssey series that I hadn't had because I do like those games. I don't know if I'm ever going to have time to play all of these, but I picked up Etrian Odyssey 5, Nexus, and Untold 2. And then some Game Boy games, the Kirby spin-off Game Boy games. So Kirby's Block Ball, Star Stacker, and Pinball Land. A couple other Game Boy games that I just thought were worthwhile, especially because these are games that if you don't get them on the eShop are going to cost you a lot. Lufia, The Legend Returns, Sword of Hope 2, and some Game Gear stuff as well. Defenders of Oasis and the Game Gear Shining Force game, Sword of Hajya. So, yeah, quite a nice haul for not a whole lot of money. Basically, my 3DS is full of like probably a couple hundred hours of RPGs now for the cost of like one game.
Easy.
So there's that. But I've also been playing a lot of stuff. So I did play one of the other games last time I started cleaning up the eShop, which was Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge. So that's the first Game Boy Mega Man game.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very competent Game Boy games. They're such those Game Boy Mega Man games are so weird because they're kind of remakes of the NES games, but kind of not. And it's just, it occupies such a weird place, but they're worth checking out even if you've played the NES games. I won't argue they're better. I've heard really good things about the later ones. I think the first one is still a little rough around the edges, but it's just kind of weird because you, like in this one, you play 4 stages. There's just 4 robot masters. Then you have a Wily stage, and at the end of the Wily stage is a 4 teleporter room, like you'd normally find, where you would refight the robot masters. But in this case, it's actually 4 new robot masters, and they're ones from Mega Man 2. Whereas the first 4 were from Mega Man 1. And then there's one more Wily stage after that, and then you fight Wily at the end. And a lot of it is just because they like ran out of space. They're like, you fight the 4 robot masters, you go to the teleporter room, you fight 4 new ones instead of just doing rematches. So I think there were supposed to be 8 stages like an NES Mega Man game, and they just couldn't fit it all on the Game Boy. But it's interesting because, like, you do the teleporter room, you're still getting new weapons. Like
that's what I was going to ask.
You fight Quick Man and you get Quick Boomerang.
Yeah.
And then you go fight Bubble Man and you get Bubble Lead. And you fight Heat Man and you get Atomic Fire.
But now you have no levels.
Except you only have you have one level after that.
Yeah.
Well, and you're working your way around the teleporter room, and they do have weaknesses against each other. So it still helps you immediately there. But yeah, it's kind of interesting, and there's a couple new bosses. Wily has a unique boss battle for this game, and then there is the Mega Man Killer. I believe that character does reappear. I think Mega Man 5 is supposed to be like the big like send off for the Game Boy series because they bring him back for Mega Man 5. You fight like all the Mega Man killers or whatever. So yeah, that's interesting. I never played the Game Boy games before. If I knock those out, then I will not have too many there will not be many Mega Man games I haven't played if I can get through all of those.
Nice.
Especially if you don't count the like pure spin-offs like soccer. But yeah, so I played that. I beat Triangle Strategy for the second time.
Oh my! I haven't even got through it one time.
Got the perfect ending, the golden ending. I don't know if I'll beat it a third time. There's 4 endings. You can basically do everything if you play through the game 4 times. But to do everything, you would have to play through it 4 times. Mm-hmm. But the 4th playthrough, you'd have very little new to experience. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I'm going to do that. A third, I'm kind of flagging. Like, I've already beaten it on hard, so there's nowhere to go on difficulty, per se. But yeah, definitely favorite game of the year so far. Probably my new favorite strategy RPG. I'm even willing to say that now. So
nice.
Love Triangle
I just now made it
Strategy.
to chapter 6. I'm way behind.
Yeah, you started later than us, though.
Well, yeah, you were waiting on that collector's edition. So
true. Yeah, I was playing a little bit on the plane today. Got to chapter 6. It was nice.
Worth it.
I mean, it's a lot of time put in. I will say. I mean, I think I have like 70 hours on Triangle Strategy now. So
nice.
After only owning the game for 4 weeks. On the 3DS, I also did finally get a chance to check out Pocket Card Jockey, which is a delightful game. I'm glad that was recommended to me before the eShop closed.
Mm-hmm.
I just love how that game starts. I don't know if this is a spoiler. That game starts with the main character dying, which is just great.
You know it's going to be a good game.
Yeah. Just a lot of fun. And then I also kind of circled back to the TurboGrafx Mini. So I went back to some games I'd sort of sampled before, and I managed to beat them because they're short. And that's Castlevania Rondo of Blood and also Lords of Thunder. So I actually managed to beat both of those this weekend, which was a lot of fun. And I'm still playing Earthbound Beginnings on the NSO app. So a lot of stuff in the last 2 weeks.
Great. Awesome. Okay, John, nice. What's up with you?
I did the opposite of Sam, and I had a very quiet couple weeks of buying. I bought Sonic Pocket Adventure for the Neo Geo Pocket Color, and I bought Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And that's pretty much it. I think I bought some digital games, but I can't remember what all I picked up. They would have been on 3DS as well.
Mm-hmm.
That Sega sale is amazing. Like, there's lots of good games on there. Everyone needs to go check it out. They're all severely discounted. I think Sega is given one more hoorah before the close of the eShop.
Yeah, I mean, the Etrian Odyssey games were $10 or less each. I think Nexus was 10 and the rest were like 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And those, I mean they launched at full price.
Yeah. And then as far as what I've played, I've finally got some time to put into Triangle Strategy. I haven't made it very far. I think I've put like 7 or 8 hours in. And then I've been playing the Frog from Whom the Bell Tolls, which is a Japanese exclusive to Game Boy. I've been playing a English ROM version of that game on my Game Boy, and it's awesome. Like, this is one that I've heard other people talk about and that I've been wanting to play, so finally taking the chance to play it. And I'll probably do an episode of On Topic Retro on this game at some point.
What is it exactly?
With myself. It's a game that was... I haven't done all my research yet. This was either built on the Link's Awakening engine or Link's Awakening was built on its engine. One or the other. But it has a lot of like overhead exploring, and then there's areas of the map that you'll like go into a castle and it turns into side scrolling, just like Link's Awakening would with dungeons and things. And but yeah, no, basically you're a prince and you drink a potion that allows you to turn into some different things, and you use them strategically to solve puzzles and defeat different enemies and stuff. But it's definitely a like, I don't know how this game didn't come to the States. Like, it's awesome.
It's
not very long, so I should be through it and should be able to talk a little bit more about it on an episode at some point here quickly.
Yeah, I only know it through the assist trophy in Smash.
Yeah. It's man, it's a blast. Like, I started it up the other day and like I was having troubles putting it down to go to bed, which is not good for me.
I definitely want to check that out. Yeah.
I don't know. It might be something where I finish it and I'll send it your guys' way at some point so you guys can play it.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's not a big deal at all.
You have it on you have it on a cartridge then?
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
Yep.
Okay.
So I can send it your guys' way.
Sweet.
To play. But yeah, that's basically what I've been playing other than ToeJam and Earl. Been trying to keep my gaming load to one game that I am playing for pleasure, one game that I'm playing for Retro Rewind, and one
business.
game that I'm playing to do it for business podcast purposes.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'll run out of time. Yeah, what have you been playing, Dan?
Yeah. So I've had more pickups this last 2 weeks than I had in a long time, just because like I've been really frustrated just with the whole retro gaming market. My normal spots, retro game shops are pretty expensive now. And I don't really want to like go hunting on Mercari because I can't, and I can't really go hunting locally. It's just not in my time. Like, I just don't have the time. And like, I'll buy a cheap game at the local every once in a while, or if I have something to trade them that they're giving good money for, I'll do that. But there just hasn't been anything lately. So, finally got my copy of Advance Wars 2 in from John, who also sent me a bunch of cover art for my Game Boy Advance games, which I'm very thankful for. Because now they're all pretty up in my shelves and not just like in a weird stack, because Game Boy Advance games do not stack. It's just like so frustrating.
Yeah, they don't, with that lip on them.
No, yeah. And like, I understand why they have a lip. Like, I'm glad they have a lip, but stacking those, especially when I was in video game retail, was always such a pain in the ass. So mad about it. So I'm excited I'm going to probably end up playing some Advance Wars, because who knows when Reboot Camp is coming out now. So Put a bunch of time into Kirby Forgotten Lands because my son is super into it. I like don't even play if I'm not playing co-op with him. He wants to play through the whole game with me. And we go back and forth. Like he'll be Kirby for a little bit and I'll be Waddle Dee and then we'll switch. But he kind of like wants to run through the whole level and not check for secrets, which makes me really mad. I'm like, no, stop. Like there's a secret over here. He's like, no, let's just go. And when he's Kirby, like I can't. When you're like whoever's Kirby basically controls the game, you know, and Waddle Dee's just there to help. So when he's Kirby, like there's nothing I can do. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna have to go back.
Do like the little teleport thing?
Yeah.
If you get too far away, teleport you back to Kirby.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like
nice.
it doesn't split screen or anything. Like literally, Waddle Dee is at the mercy of Kirby, which is great when I'm Kirby because like if he walks off an edge or stays back, he just keeps playing, you know? That's like awesome for him because he keeps staying in the action. But yeah, like so I have to go back into the level later without him and get all the secrets as just Kirby. But it's been really great just like bonding in that way. I'm still also playing Triangle Strategy on my own, but Kirby has taken up the brain space. I'm absolutely loving Kirby. It's so good. I hope they make a sequel. Honestly, I hope they keep making these because just the game, the like Mario 3D World style top down 3D game works so well for Kirby.
I think they could do DK that way too. Kind of hoping we see something.
Yeah, I think DK deserves a little more than that because it is a little bit of a cop out as far as like a 3D platformer goes. It's not like a full, like you have no camera control, you know? And if we go 3D Donkey Kong, I want it to be like Mario Odyssey level of detail in gameplay and not necessarily be hindered by that kind of Kirby.
You want Donkey Kong 64 too.
I want Donkey Kong 64 too. Yes, that's a different conversation for a different podcast though. Anyway, I finally picked up the only Pikmin game I've never played, which is Hey Pikmin. For some reason, it's expensive now. It's like, I don't know why that happened, but I mean, not like expensive, but it's certainly not a bargain bin game anymore. Like,
that's awesome.
Chibi Robo is still in the bargain bin. But I found a sealed copy for $20 on eBay. Somebody just had a couple of them. Just like, okay, cool. That's $15 off price charting. I'll bite on that. I'm gonna open it because I want to play it, which I have mixed feelings about. But you know, it's new enough where I don't feel that.
How did you not play this game?
Because when it came out, and I found out it was a side scroller, I, out of principle, decided to not support that decision.
It's a good game though.
Yeah, like I'm gonna go into it now with an open mind because I'm A, desperate for Pikmin, and B, don't care anymore. So, and then the last thing is, like I said earlier, like it's hard to like be on Mercari all the time to find deals, but I was on there the other day and I was able to snag a pretty good deal on some Game Boy games. The lot is Game & Watch Gallery 3, Kirby's Dream Land, Pocket Bomberman, not to be confused with Bomberman GB, which I just found out are two very different things, Mario Land 2, Wave Race, Donkey Kong Land 2, and Yoshi. And actually that only leaves Donkey Kong Land 3 that I'm missing to have the Donkey Kong Land trilogy on Game Boy.
And also Bomberman GB is actually the sequel to Wario Blast without Wario in it.
That's weird.
For anybody that's the whole thing, it's almost like a Square Enix thing. The Bomberman GB in Japan, like it was called Bomberman GB, is what we got as Wario Blast in America. And then instead of saying that, instead of continuing on with Wario, Nintendo drops Wario out brings over the sequel to Bomberman GB and then just calls it Bomberman GB.
Okay.
So it makes sense of that.
Whatever. Well, after a little bit of research, we found out that Pocket Bomberman has like a side-scrolling puzzle game, which looks pretty cool, as well as normal Bomberman. So I'm actually looking forward to trying that out. I've never played it. I like Bomberman.
It's good.
Yeah. You were on a Game & Watch gallery kick a little while ago, right, John?
I own them all. Yes.
Yeah, the Game Boy ones.
I just like Game & Watch.
Yeah. So I'm anxious to see what games are on 3. Excited to play the first Wave Race game. See what that's all about. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty good lot. For about half off price charting for all those. I don't know. It was just kind of sitting there and I was like, okay, sure. So hopefully they like work. He said they worked. So I might need to relabel one of them because like they're all kind of dirty, but nothing a good toothbrush with rubbing alcohol can't fix. That being said, guys, y'all want to play some Price's Retro games?
Sounds good.
Let's
to
do
me.
it.
If this is your first time playing Price's Retro, this is how we play. I'm going to list off 4 or 5 games. Everyone else is going to guess how much these games are worth in total. Whoever guesses the closest wins that round. And the next person lists off their games. Everyone brought a list and everyone guesses on each other's lists. At the end of the game, whoever won the most rounds wins the game. But look out for Poltergeist. He guesses 300 on each list. And if he wins the game, I have to give away a sticker from the merch store to one of our Discord members. So, it's just the 3 of us tonight, no guests. So, I'm gonna go ahead and go first. Okay. So tonight my theme is, so April 4th, 2005, Doom 3, Resurrection of Evil launches on the PC. And so all of my games are Doom games. We're going to start with Doom 64 for the N64, complete in box. Doom 3 Collector's Edition for the original Xbox, complete in box. Doom for the Super Nintendo, complete in box. And Doom 2 for the Game Boy Advance, complete in box. And a lot of Doom happening around here. Anybody have a guess?
I think I've got a guess. I think I'm going to say 200.
Okay.
Oh, wow. I was not expecting you to be guessing below me. I've got 380.
Well, actual retail value is $465.95. Sam taking this one.
You should know I always guess low.
Yeah.
Especially on complete in box stuff.
John beat you. So these prices kind of surprised me as well.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking they'd be near that high.
Doom 64 is $136.01. Doom 3 is $11.32. Doom for the Super Nintendo is $151.39, and Doom 2 for the Game Boy Advance is $167.23. So I was really surprised by, well, pretty much all of it surprised me that it was over $100. But I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking the N64 one would, I was thinking around, $80 or so for that, and then maybe 50 or 60 for the other 2. I knew the Xbox one was worth nothing.
Yeah, well.
Well, I wasn't sure because it was a collector's edition, but I did think that was the least valuable of them.
That was I was trying to trick you guys with that one, but yeah, the Xbox game isn't worth anything. Actually, no version of Doom 3 that I saw was worth more than like $15.
No, yeah,
so.
they're all dirt cheap.
Yeah. Great. So that's my list. Sam won. And then Sam, why don't you go next then?
All right. Well, Dan, you probably know this one. The first game on the list is Donkey Konga with the bongo, complete in box.
The bundle?
For the GameCube with the bongo.
Mm-hmm.
That's price charting just listed as with bongo. I assume that's the bundle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If it's complete in box, it would have to be the bundle. And Donkey Konga 2 with bongo for the GameCube, complete in box. Then Samba de Amigo for the Dreamcast,
Nice.
complete in box.
With the
Samba de
drum.
Amigo again for the Wii.
Oh,
complete in box.
And do those two have the drums with them, presumably?
The maracas?
The maracas. Does the Wii version have that?
I don't think the Wii... That just used the Wii remote.
It has.
Yeah.
It came with shells for maracas.
Did it come with shells?
It did.
Okay. It came with Wii plastic bits.
I don't think
Plastic
price
bits.
charting lists anything different.
Okay.
Let me check.
That's interesting because I think I looked up Samba de Amigo one time and I couldn't find whether it was talking about complete with drum or not, or maracas or whatever.
Yeah, I mean it just lists by platform.
Because you can't play Samba de Amigo on the Dreamcast without it. And it's a whole setup. It's a whole like thing you put on the floor and all this stuff.
Yeah, but obviously the theme here is games starring primates that have percussion instrument peripherals, which doesn't happen that often, but it's weird that it happened more than once.
Happens enough.
Yep.
So Sam, let me ask you this. Based on the price, would you guess that price charting is including the maracas for the Dreamcast or no?
I'm the wrong person to ask that because I would guess wrong anyway.
That's why I want to know, like, just what you think.
Price charting lists only one price. So with that in mind...
Okay.
I would assume that it has to be with the maracas then.
Yeah. That's so tough, man. Dang it. All right. I'll kind of split the difference here.
Well, it's complete, so...
I'll split the difference with that one. Shoot. Dang it. All right. Okay, I'm going to guess 320.
320 for Dan?
All right. I was thinking 375.
I actually went down from my original guess.
You're both high, which means the ghost takes it. Total is only $123.74.
There's no way that price includes the maracas at that price.
Bongos.
They only list the one price. So Donkey Konga with bongo is $39.02.
That's the same price as just bongos.
Yeah.
You're buying it just for the bongos. I mean, where it's gone down lately.
Jeez.
Oh,
like
Donkey Konga 2 with bongo is listed at $18.57.
I literally have that.
That's the best way to buy bongos.
I have that. I have
no
Donkey
way.
Konga 2 with
Or
bongos.
nobody's been selling it recently. Actually,
jeez.
that might be the answer.
It's
Let's
BS.
see. Sales. Yeah, volume of sales for complete in box is 3 per year. So these just aren't moving. People are probably asking more for them now and nobody's buying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of this game. That's how it works. You go by price charting no matter what. Price charting can either help you or burn you.
It's part of the game.
And Samba de Amigo for the Dreamcast complete is $59.24. Samba de Amigo for the Wii is $6.91.
I am shamed. All right, Ghost, you won that one.
Sure.
Darn you, poltergeist. All right, Sam. I mean, John. Actually, I was going to say, Sam,
right.
It's up to us to beat the Ghost now. Okay, so, John, don't mess this up.
Right.
Yeah, I'm out. All right. So, being that we are going to talk some controller talk, I chose all controllers by themselves.
This can't possibly
first one is
go poorly.
The first one here is the Dragon Quest Slime controller for the PS2, complete in box.
Brother. I know these are all going to be like insane or
I
something.
have no idea.
Ridiculous.
The second one is the fishing rod for the Dreamcast, complete in box. The third controller is the Resident Evil 4 chainsaw for the PlayStation 2, complete in box.
Okay. One of those is way more expensive than the other one. So okay.
And the last controller is the Wii U gamepad loose.
I have to guess first, right?
John, I hate you. Go ahead,
Yes.
Sam.
Yeah, you're first.
I'm shot in the dark here. $1,300.
Okay.
Sam,
What do you got?
what in the world? Now
I
I'm
can't guess high, right?
Now I'm questioning my entire life.
I always guess low.
For crying out loud. Okay, so I'm gonna stick to my original guess, even though Sam is now like making me question the very existence of life itself.
The fabric of your
Yeah,
existence.
my reality.
Ask yourself, how many games of this have I actually won?
Well, that's why I'm like trying to not let it bother me, because my guess is
That's why he's taking your guess and throwing it out.
my guess is 350.
Okay.
Because I think the PS2 chainsaw is not that expensive. Like, I know the GameCube one is ridiculous, but I'm pretty sure the PS2 one is like not that bad.
So, the total for my lot is $508.79, which makes Dan the winner.
Okay. Whew.
Because you just went over the ghost, so you win.
Yeah.
And then Sam's was like
yeah, I'm way off.
astronomical.
I mean, I'm still surprised it's that high, though.
So you actually have it backwards. The PS2 version of the Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller is more expensive.
Really?
Yeah, there was more of the GameCube version since it came out first.
Oh.
I was guessing it was just insanely expensive.
Yeah,
well,
it is.
and also
But
usually,
both are expensive.
usually anything that's both PS2 and GameCube, the GameCube version is the expensive one usually. So
Yeah. So the Dragon Quest Slime controller for the PS2 complete is $76.47. The fishing rod for the Dreamcast complete is $53.99. The Resident Evil 4 chainsaw for the PS2 complete is $300. And the Wii U gamepad loose, $78.33.
I was pretty close on all of these except the chainsaw.
I'm actually surprised the gamepad's that low now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to be more, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was
Used to
funny.
be like
I was thinking
120.
So
I was thinking that the chainsaw was going to be more for the GameCube as well.
how much is it for the
But
GameCube?
that was not. That's what I was going to look up really quick.
Also, John, me, Sam, and Poltergeist all tied.
Huh? No, you won two.
My round. You won 2 rounds.
Yeah.
No, Sam won the
Poltergeist
first
has-
round.
Mhm.
The Ghost
you won
won
the
the
next
second
one.
round.
Oh, no, that's right.
The Ghost
that's
won.
right.
Oh wait,
Ghost
yeah.
won the
Yeah.
second round.
So you guys
yeah.
all tied. Okay.
So do you have
I
the
believe
numbers?
Dan still takes it if we're going by absolute difference. Because
Okay.
I was
Hold on.
way
I can
off
look
on
at.
that last round.
I can look at that real quick. But yeah, but I don't know how far Poltergeist was off. The one time. So, let's see. Poltergeist was off by
That was on your
Oh wait, we can't. That's the thing though with like Poltergeist, since he's guessing 3 times, no matter what,
Yeah.
he's always
that's
gonna
true.
lose
well,
in that sense.
okay, that's fine.
Just don't tie with the ghost.
Yeah, I'd say
we gotta give some
respect.
respect to the living, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think I was gonna say, or we could do the opposite. If all three of you guys tie, maybe the ghost just wins.
No. He needs to win fair and square, just like the rest of us.
Just win fair and square. He also does more guesses than everyone else.
Okay.
So the loose price for the GameCube controller, the chainsaw, is only $105. Complete is $295, so it's really close to the PS2 price complete. But the loose PS2 version of that controller is only like $40 less than complete.
Yeah, I don't see anything on eBay under $200.
Yeah, that's
again,
probably another one. It just comes down to not a lot of them being sold.
Yeah.
Man,
right
somebody
now.
I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was somebody on the Nintendo Dads was selling all their stuff, and they had one of these complete in the box for the GameCube.
I think it was Gary.
And it was Gary, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I think the shipping was so astronomical that I passed.
Yeah, shipping to and from the UK has been ridiculous for the past couple of years.
Well, and a complete chainsaw controller is gonna. That's a big package,
and you're gonna want to wrap that thing up real good. So how do we decide who won here? Okay, if we assume
unprecedented,
I know, if we assume that the ghost only guesses twice, even though he guessed 3 times to keep it even, he guesses the same number every time, right? But I guess then what?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. Whose win was the closest? Like, if we get rid of all the guesses, right? Whose win was the closest? Like, John, what was your price?
So hold on a sec. So whose win was the closest is gonna be Sam.
Okay, that's how we'll do it.
Right. The ghost was pretty far off on my lot.
The ghost. Well, even and Dan's. Sam, you were the closest. Your guess was only $85 off from Dan's list.
That's how we'll do it.
Okay. I will accept this. Represent
I will
the living.
accept the winner.
I'll accept the win. I didn't think I won. But.
Congratulations, Sam. You
just take it as a badge of honor.
We underplayed this week. Hey, we have a couple other games to play tonight, and Sam has created a Spot the Fake for us. I believe it's a Spot the Real, though. Is that right?
No, this time it is a Spot the Fake. I've been making Spot the Reals.
Okay, that's good.
I just collected some interestingly titled games and put them in a list, and then added a fake one to it.
Let's do it.
So one of these is fake. The rest of these are real games. There are 5. I want you to guess which one is fake.
Okay.
There's no real theme to these. These are just, if you find a theme, I'll be surprised. So first we have Love and Destroy. Love and Destroy. Second, we have Pleasure Goal. Third, Moose of Madness.
Oh my gosh.
Fourth, Jesus Dreadful Biomonster. And fifth, I Love You, Colonel Sanders, a finger-licking good dating simulator.
I think the last one is the fake game.
That's the only one I thought was real.
I Love You, Colonel Sanders.
Yes.
We have a vote for I Love You, Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, John thinks that.
A finger-licking good dating simulator.
Can you run through them again real quick?
Love and Destroy, Pleasure Goal, Moose of Madness, Jesus Dreadful Biomonster, and I Love You, Colonel Sanders, a finger-licking good dating simulator.
I'm going to say Moose of Madness is fake.
Okay, final guesses.
Final answer.
John, sticking to your guns on...
Yep.
All right, well, I Love You, Colonel Sanders, a finger-licking good dating simulator is a Steam-free game that was released in 2019. It's still available. Done as advertising for KFC.
That's why, of course it's real.
Love and Destroy is a third-person shooter developed by none other than Inta Creates.
Oh.
It's actually their second game. It was only released in Japan for the PlayStation in 1999.
It sounded like a Japanese game. I was like, that could be Japanese.
Yeah, some of these are. Pleasure Goal is a Neo Geo CD soccer game released for the Neo Geo CD and arcade in 1996. Moose of Madness is the fake.
Yes!
Dan was correct.
Moose
That was
of Madness.
I didn't know how to come up with something to even like fit the rest of these, so I just kind of
like,
I don't know. That came out of my
Nothing even
brain
sounded
at some
similar
point.
in this batch of games.
True. Maybe that made it stand out a little too much.
I'm trying to even describe what tipped me off, but it just seemed like it just felt a little too like it wasn't clever enough, you know?
Plain.
Yeah. Like if I feel like maybe that, I don't know. Like it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what tipped me off, but it just kind of felt a little like less.
Fell a little bit with the rest of the group.
A little bit, yeah. Like it was the odd man out in my mind, even though Colonel Sanders was still.
Lastly, we have Jesus Dreadful Biomonster, which originally released for the MSX2 in 1987. It had a Famicom port in 1989. The full title of the game. So I guess the original title was just Jesus. But the Famicom port was titled Jesus Kyofu no Biomonster, which Dreadful Biomonster is the translation I pulled up for that.
Wow.
It's a text-based adventure game, and for whatever reason, it takes place on a space station named Jesus.
That would have been my other guess, but I thought like, well, I don't think Sam would throw Jesus around like that, so that's why I didn't think that was it. But that was a good one.
Yeah.
I love silly game names. Thank you, Sam. We have a games described badly from none other than the ambassador, who also came up with the like inventing games topic that we were all discussing in the Discord. So he's got this is called Horrible Logic. The theme is games liked by non-Dan hosts. So here we go. Game number 1 is a cyborg adolescent has to kill 8 sentient appliances before he can kill an elderly man.
Mega Man.
That's got to be Mega Man, right?
Yep.
Game 2. Chibi Dungeons and Dragons on a Monopoly board.
That's Dokapon Kingdom.
Yep.
You know, that if you pitched me the game like that, I'd be like, well, I'm in now, like for sure. Game 3. A 5-point shape on a firing arm to make me a champion of the people. Oh, what a treasure.
Gunstar Heroes.
Yeah, I was like Star something. Gunstar
Firing
Heroes.
arm. Yeah, Heroes. Yeah, he's like playing with the name. I got it. I get it. Okay, game 4. A samurai challenges an Indian dude with long limbs to Japanese battle poker. Pocket fighters? Is there a card fighter or something?
Indian.
A samurai challenges an Indian dude with long arms. That sounds like Street Fighter. Some Capcom
Yeah,
game.
it sounds like Dalsim.
Yeah.
To Japanese battle poker. Is there a card fighting game, John?
There is. There's on Neo Geo Pocket Color. It's Card Fighters Clash.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, SNK has like
it's-
Samurai Showdown, so that's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's SNK and Capcom. Capcom both had a version of it.
Game 5.
So maybe that's it.
A blue-collar sewer technician teams up with potential copyright infringements to minions for some good old square moving.
Oh, is this Mario and Rabbids?
Blue collar sewer technician teams up with potential copyright infringements to
That's
Minions.
Mario.
Yeah, because Rabbids and Minions are kind of similar.
Yeah, I
Considered
guess.
the same thing. Yeah.
Square moving is the
I
tactics.
guess because there's grids.
Yeah. And finally, game 6. Another name for the final combustible wooded area pit. Another name for the final combustible wooded area pit. Fire pit?
Wooden area pit.
Bonfire?
Last final.
Fire pit? Well,
Not
that's
the last campfire, is it?
for the final. I mean,
It has to be last campfire.
it has to be the last campfire. I mean, you were just talking about that game, right?
It's been a little while ago, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really good game.
All right, let's see about these answers. Our first game, a cyborg adolescent has killed 8 sentient appliances before he can kill an elderly man. We thought it was Mega Man. And Mega Man 2
Yeah, it could have been. All of them are like
could have
that,
been
aren't they?
pretty much, yeah. He said this is the first Mega Man game to have
yeah.
8 bosses before the big
That's true.
bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
8. Yeah.
Game 2, Chibi Dungeon Dragons Monopoly board is Dokapon Kingdom. Game 3 is a 5-point shape on a firing arm to make me a champion of the people. Oh, what a treasure, is Gunstar Heroes. Game 4, a samurai challenges an Indian dude with long limbs to Japanese battle poker is Capcom vs. SNK Card Fighters Clash. Number 5, a blue-collar sewer technician teams up with potential copyright infringements to Minions for some good old square moving is Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. And Game 6, another name for the final combustible wooded area pit is The Last Campfire. He said I had to do a deep dive for that one. Ambassador,
Yep.
you have not fooled
You guys
us.
still need to play it.
Maybe.
It's a fun
Yeah.
puzzle game.
Hey, you know what though? If somebody listening to this podcast wants to submit either a Price's Retro list, a game described badly, or a spot the fake, all you have to do is DM me. You can DM me on Twitter at RetroLogic Games, or in the Discord, you can send me a DM and say, hey, I have a game I want to submit, and I'll send you instructions on how to do that. I would love for you to do that. Please do that. I love community lists. It's like what we live for on this show. I've got a Retropedia, but I am going to save it for next week so that we can move on to our topic of this week, which is controllers. And we're going to let Sam lead this show topic after this break.
Okay, welcome back, and we are getting ready to talk about controllers. A very interesting topic, the way controllers have changed over time. Don't often think about it, but it really does affect, the way you play games. And one of the first things I brought up when it came to this topic was arcades, because when you're designing games for arcades, you can actually tailor your controller to the game itself specifically. You don't need one size fits all controller apparatus. And it's also just the earliest, a lot of the earliest video games were in arcades. So as we figured out what makes a good controller, a lot of that happened there. Obviously, joysticks, buttons became pretty standard for a lot of things, but there were some interesting innovations along the way, as well as some of the more obvious things like your light guns and your steering wheels and pedals that just made sense. Like, you're going to make a racing game, let's make a steering wheel so it feels like you're driving.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys had any particular thoughts. One I really wanted to draw attention to, because I thought this was really cool the one time I was able to actually play it, is several SNK games had these sticks that would twist, like in Mario Warriors, where you move the stick to move your character, but you aim by rotating by like twisting it. And it actually makes a huge difference. Like if you play,
does that feel good
on an emulator or something? I think it does once you get used to it. It takes some getting used to.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that like if you're playing on an emulator with a normal gamepad type controller, it's not the same.
I think Metal Slug utilized this as well.
Oh yeah, I think so.
In arcades.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never even thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
You can move left to right with the joystick and then turn the joystick to aim your shots.
I think it's really cool to think about like controllers kind of had to be standardized once they came home because it's a lot like you could pour a lot more money into an arcade cabinet than you could the design and manufacturing of a home console. So, like the Atari joystick is just, was the standard. That's what everything came with. And if you wanted to play Arkanoid or you wanted to play Kaboom, you had to get the sold separately dials, or Pong.
That's what I was going to say. The first home consoles had to learn that lesson of not having a standardized control pad because, with Intellivision and Atari, these all and ColecoVision, they all had like 4 or 5 different kinds of game pads you could buy.
Yeah,
that were tailored to certain games that were coming home from arcades. So, I mean, it wasn't really until probably NES that we saw like a standardized gamepad that was supposed to work with all games.
Well, and some of that is a consequence of, you were designing games for the system. You weren't just trying to port an arcade game to the system, which developed its controls for an arcade. And trying to fit it into what you had to work with.
The early video game console manufacturers began as arcade manufacturers. So you also had that too, where Nintendo they had arcade games, but I think like they didn't really take off until their console stuff took off.
Maybe it was Nintendo's understanding of like, because they were a toy company before they even touched arcades.
Exactly.
So they were trying to give you an all-in-one experience with their Nintendo, with the entertainment system. They were saying, we don't want to require the peripherals. Like the peripherals are nice, but here's the zapper and here's the controller. And that's what you got when you bought an NES when it launched, right? It came with it. And it came with a cartridge that let you use all the peripherals. So, and that philosophy carried over to the Wii too, when famously Reggie like pushed Nintendo Japan to be like, look, include Wii Sports, make it fun in a box, because Nintendo as a toy maker, that was their mentality, as opposed to arcade game makers who were trying to cater the controller to each individual game. So that's interesting.
And it's also neat to look at this, list and like we've come full circle almost. Like, joysticks were the most, common way to play an arcade game. And then we went to, D-pad for home consoles for a long time until 3D games came about. And then now we've gone back to what's essentially a mini joystick as a control stick.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is interesting those other things, because some of those like the dials and the trackball I think had their purpose for the time, but they were never going to work as part of a standard controller. Like I do think there's something to be said for like that probably is the best way to play those games. Oh,
big time. Yeah. I mean, playing Arkanoid with a dial is so much better. Way more accurate, way more fun.
Even Pong.
Yeah. Like you have to. But I think also as games got more sophisticated and you were able to actually tell a story and keep people's attention through story and not necessarily just emulating an arcade experience, a joystick or a D-pad and buttons lended themselves to more of a role-playing or even like side-scrolling shooter platformer style game. Whereas anything you do with a trackball or a dial almost immediately limits you to a very specific type of game. So I think a lot of it has to do with that as well. Just let's make more complicated games. How do we standardize the controller for that experience?
Right. And it's kind of interesting how we got there piecemeal through the different kind of pieces that make up. I mean, because these days you look at an Xbox controller, you look at a PlayStation controller, you look at a Switch Pro controller, especially. They're very similar in design. The same elements are there. There's a little bit of variation in the form factor. Some of the added bells and whistles like gyro and touchpad and whether or not the triggers are analog do vary. But, you know, we've kind of arrived at this consensus of what a home video game console standard controller is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But it kind of, we got there so gradually because, you know, you had the Atari joystick, but that was a joystick. That was very much still like, let's take the most common arcade controller and give you one you can hold in your hand. But the NES gave us the D-pad, and that stayed. It gave us the D-pad. The Super Nintendo gave us the 4 face buttons, and that's pretty much stayed. We had,
and
Sega really tried to push for 6.
L and R as well.
Yeah, and L and R, shoulder buttons. The DualShock was definitely a big step forward as well with 2 analog sticks.
Can I just say, and I hope I'm not the only one in the world who thinks this, but the 3-button layout is the most confusing. Oh my gosh. Maybe I'm insane, but I can never tell where my fingers are on the Sega Genesis controller.
I actually don't have to, like...
I don't know why.
Like, the last time I played Alien Soldier, it made more sense to me because I played on a 3-button controller than... Because before I was playing on, like, a Switch controller.
Well, maybe it's the 3 inline buttons that throws me off. I don't know what it is, but I've always had trouble with that. For
the way a number of those games work, you have a jump button and a shoot button, and then C is usually like a weapon switch, or C is one that you almost never you use very intermittently, whereas you're always jumping and shooting. So,
and actually, to go back,
the way the game's played, it works fine. Yeah, but it's definitely not something. It was never going to be the future of controllers.
Part of my problem, I think, in going back to ToeJam and Earl, is that game has a layer of complexity with the controls that is almost unnecessary. Like, one button is to open your present box, and then another button is to switch between. Then once the present box is open, another button, the map button, becomes switch from open to drop. And then to select a present to open it, you press the action button. And then to close it, you press the present button again. And now that you're back in the world, you have your action button, and then you have your open present button, and then you have your map button. And those switch back and forth so often that game in particular, which is a game that I played tons of as a kid.
Yeah, and one button will take you to show the components you've collected for your spaceship.
Yeah. So it's weird. So convoluted. Yeah. And I think that's pretty unique.
It can feel really weird just for like navigating menus and things.
For sure. Like
it took me a little bit to figure out the layout on the Switch controller of like which buttons do what for ToeJam and Earl. Like it took me a little bit to put all that together while I was playing it.
It's complicated for no reason in that game. And I love that game, but that part of it in particular. And also, like, if you have 3 buttons, what button is advance and what button is cancel or go back, right? Because it's like A and B. A is select, B is go back. But if you have A, B, C, all of a sudden you have 3 buttons, and now it's like, where the whole concept of go forward and back get thrown off. And
to be fair, even on the 4 buttons, it gets, because different developers have different ideas of which one should be confirmed,
and that's true. Like between Xbox and Nintendo, it switches. But A is usually always advance, and B is usually always go back.
Well, even on Nintendo's the only one that does that, because even PlayStation, even though their buttons aren't labeled the same, X, the bottom button on the pattern 4-button pattern is accept, and circle, which would be usually,
but especially early on, I forget what I was playing something where triangle was the confirm button on PS1.
That's bananas.
I don't remember what it was.
Get out of here.
Yeah, that's just
I made so many mistakes because of that.
Yeah, no, X's are cross. Sorry, cross is confirm, not triangle.
Which to me doesn't even make any sense. Well, now we're just getting into the weeds about stuff. But I never liked the PlayStation.
All is to say, the DualShock controller was very important.
Yes.
As 2 analog sticks. Mm-hmm. And the analog stick came back, and I am willing to defend the N64 controller to some extent. But you look at the N64 controller, you look at especially like the Sega Saturn 3D controller, and those early attempts to add an analog stick to the controller did not really work. Mm-hmm. Now, the N64 worked for what it was, but certainly I think dual analog stick was inevitably going to become the favorite. Mm-hmm. That's just so essential for 3D games, to have a movement and a camera. And I think that's something we so much take for granted today. I mean, you still find an old person, hand them a controller with 2 analog sticks, ask them to move a character around the screen. They will not understand.
No, my 6-year-old has such a hard time with that. Like I can't even hand him a normal controller. I have to hand him a Joy-Con sideways, and he knows what to do. But yeah, anything more than that, he's like, Dad, what? What are you giving me?
Like the N64, there was a lot of games. Well, not a lot of games. There were some games that had the ability to use 2 N64 controllers for 1 input.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know anybody who did that when the N64 was still being played. But like since then, people have figured this out, and like people are playing GoldenEye with 2 N64 controllers, which gives you 2 sticks.
I will say that weirdly, don't get me wrong, this takes a lot of getting used to, but the default control scheme for Turok is your C buttons are movement and your control stick is your camera, and that's backwards from how you use control sticks now, because the sticks are reversed, right? You can hold it lefty style and do the same thing, but it doesn't feel as right, and you don't have access to all of your weapon switching buttons.
What if you could invert everything and then turn the controller upside down?
Oh my gosh. Let's not piss people off with the N64 controller more than we have to. And I'm not saying that it's easy to get used to, but when you get used to it, it works really well. It's just like a PC using the WASD for your movement and a mouse for camera.
Because you need less fine control of movement than you do aiming.
Yeah.
Say.
Mm-hmm. Especially in a shooter.
That actually does make a lot of sense.
You know what still isn't easy? Jumping in that game.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no.
You can't see where you're jumping.
There's an overlay map that you can turn on that helps you with it.
It's still horrible in the first game.
I'm not going to argue with you. I don't know why that game has platforming, but
I don't either. It makes it really hard.
But to move on to the Dreamcast controller, which is actually a favorite of mine, I find it to be very ergonomic and easy to hold and easy to use. But even then, the joystick, instead of having the grips like a DualShock, it's got these little taste buds, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, like nubs.
And it's just slippery. I don't like that joystick. I want a better Dreamcast joystick. It deserves a better joystick. The stick itself is fine, but the grip is just terrible. If your thumb gets sweaty at all, it's going to slip all over the place.
You could easily see the influence of the Sega Saturn 3D controller on the Dreamcast.
Oh, big time. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can tell it was a natural evolution.
And then you could even see where Microsoft was borrowing a lot of Sega's technology for their Xbox. I mean, the ABXY is the exact same.
The Duke looks just like a Dreamcast controller
it's
almost.
Like a freakishly like overweight Dreamcast controller.
A bloated,
inflated steroids.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't really claim that Xbox contributed anything. Really, they kind of came in too late to do so.
Yeah, and that's fine.
I mean, Nintendo supplied. I mean, Nintendo still, I believe, still has a patent on the actual like cross-shaped D-pad, which is kind of irritating in some ways because everybody should just be using that.
Yeah, but there's third-party controllers that use it. Like 8BitDo uses it in their controllers, but I don't know if maybe they're licensing it from Nintendo in some way, or if they get around it.
Maybe it expired, or it's just different enough.
Yeah, if it's reverse engineered, they can change something just slightly and get past some of that stuff.
Yeah,
but I think that's how PlayStation went with the individual buttons for their D-pad.
Yeah, and Sony also gave us the 2 rows of shoulder buttons, which is also. I guess the one thing you could credit Xbox with is that they turned those into triggers, which I do think is a good idea. I definitely know a lot of people who prefer that. Dreamcast had triggers instead of just shoulder buttons.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Analog triggers.
How much I know about the Dreamcast.
Yep, they're just borrowing.
But I don't mind that. Like they refined it, and a lot of people still think the Xbox design is the most comfortable controller, and I don't think they're wrong. I think it's a very comfortable controller. Xbox 360 nailed it,
There's also the GameCube.
GameCube's pretty good.
GameCube is great. I love the GameCube controller. I often wish that the weird ABXY layout they had stuck.
Mm-hmm. I do think it's the best face button layout.
It really is.
It's an improvement on what the Super Nintendo did that nobody else picked up on, which was to have the buttons be concave and convex, because that allows you to feel the difference in the buttons without actually looking at them.
Exactly.
And the GameCube went a step further and made them all different sizes and shapes. But they're all still close enough together that you can easily, just kind of roll your thumb from one to the next.
Yeah.
The most complaints I ever hear about the GameCube controller is that it's too small, like size-wise.
The D-pad is
at that point in time.
The D-pad is too small, and that's the main
even
problem
the controller
with the D-pad
itself is a lot smaller than like an Xbox controller per se.
Yeah.
It's not too much smaller than a PlayStation controller. I think honestly,
they're pretty similar.
The D-pad is the most consistent complaint, and it's a good one. I mean, it's too small to be functional for anything other than like weapon select or whatever.
Yeah, or that the C stick isn't ever really utilized as a second stick as often.
To be fair, though, I have my complaints about pretty much everybody's D-pads these days. They're just not. Nobody knows how to make a good D-pad anymore.
Nobody can get it right.
As far as the standard controllers, I mean, it's
even Nintendo's D-pads are kind of
NES,
different.
SNES days.
Well, it's weird that they had.
I mean, the Pro controller has its issues.
That's so weird.
I actually think the Pro controller is a lot better than it gets credit for, but I hear a lot of complaints about the D-pad. I don't know if it's like bad quality control or what, but I think some of it can be overcome by compensating for it in the way. I mean, I make sure that I do not keep my thumb centered. So I slide it to the edge of the D-pad to make sure when I'm pushing right that it doesn't accidentally input up.
I don't play
that
fighting
is a problem
games
with Pro controllers.
But I have noticed, especially if I'm using the D-pad in like menus, that it's janky, and that's not okay. But I love the feel of the Switch Pro controller. Like, it's probably the most comfortable Nintendo controller they've ever made. It's very, very comfortable.
Yep.
That's what I was going to say. I think the Switch Pro controller, out of all the controllers I have, which is pretty much all of them now, I think it's my favorite feel. Like as far as like it has the right weight distribution. Like it's really comfortable for me.
And I do think gyro should
all
stay.
of them.
Yeah,
I think gyro is great.
It has to.
Just on one like that. But aside from the main controllers, there's also all the third-party stuff and all the even first-party peripherals. So I don't know if you guys had any favorites that you wanted to shout out.
Oh man!
Obviously, we have stuff like the NES Zapper. I think everybody who's played an NES has used the Zapper.
Yeah.
I mean, if you played Duck Hunt.
Before I forget, do you either one of you guys know if the latest Xbox controller has gyro?
Yeah, I think they all do. It's pretty standard now.
I don't
think it did.
I'm not 100% sure. I know PlayStation does because they have the 6-axis from the PlayStation 3 just went forward, which was the same thing as what Nintendo was doing.
Do they use it much?
I don't think Xbox ever did. No, PlayStation doesn't use it as much, but it's there, I'm pretty sure.
Because I mean, that's the thing. I think
it doesn't. It does not.
Think for any aiming action, to have the gyro be a part of that is incredibly helpful. I think Splatoon has shown that. Even like Breath of the Wild did it for bow and arrow stuff, and that's so good to have.
Yeah, the Xbox controller
like
confirmed
the fine adjustment on your aim.
The most recent controller for the Xbox does not have gyro. You can get a third-party controller that does, but it's like you have to like map it to the stick somehow and adjust it all crazy. So you have to like program the gyro in the third-party controller in order to even use it, which is like not even worth it. Yeah, Splatoon 1 for the Wii U sold me hard on gyro aim. Like that game sung so sweetly with the gyro aiming. I was like, I can't not play a shooter. I played almost all of Doom Eternal handheld with gyro aiming, like on the Switch.
It's and so nice for the fine tuning of your aiming.
And Splatoon is an interesting case because what the gyro typically does with that by default is the gyro is your y-axis, your vertical axis, whereas your control stick is still your horizontal axis. And that helps a lot to sort of like differentiate those two levels of aiming, particularly in a game like Splatoon that has a lot of vertical movement in it. Not every shooter does, but like in Splatoon, especially if you're really like pushing to get good, you're going to do a lot of like little evasive jumps and you need to compensate your aim to level down so that you stay on your target while you're jumping up and down to be harder to hit. And that helps make that not so frustrating because you just get into a natural groove of tilting your controller down with your jump.
Now, as far as third-party peripherals go, the Super Nintendo mouse is one that I have a lot of fond memories of. Beginning with it was included with Mario Paint, and then I would like look for the little symbol on games because I was like, oh, I want to know what else I can do with this thing. And I know there were other games that used it, but the only game I ever saw that had the symbol on it was Lemmings 2.
Yeah.
So I played Lemmings 2 and I
haven't
Mario
played
Paint.
many.
But like
most of those have been recent for me.
Yeah.
Mario and Wario and Tin Star are two others I've played.
But just and there's actually a pretty good list of games that are compatible with it. But when you're a kid shopping for games, if it doesn't have the mouse symbol on the front, then I'm not going to know, you know? It's like a baked in, whether it's like actually part of the part of it or
that's the interesting thing too, is in those older days, it was still kind of more common for there to be games you basically had to have the controller for, which is really weird to think about today. I mean, there's a few, I mean, we talked about Donkey Konga earlier, but you can still play that without the bongos, but why?
Yeah, you could play with a controller, but why would you? It's not as fun anymore.
Jungle Beat is an unfortunate case where like it's kind of like that, but it's almost the ideal way to play Jungle Beat is with the bongos, like hard, like any other way you're playing that game, you're missing out on a huge experience. And the Wii new Play Control version of it gets rid of the bongos completely. You can't even plug them in. It just turns it into a normal side scroller, and it's a totally different game in a bad way.
But like, case in point about not knowing what you needed or not knowing what you could do with the controller. I remember when I was still pretty young, Super Nintendo was old by this point. So when you went shopping for Super Nintendo games at a store, you were usually picking up a loose cartridge, a used game. And I remember coming home with a copy of Battle Clash and not realizing, oh, I need a Super Scope. So to this day, I've never actually played Battle Clash, but I did own it.
Dude, the exact same thing happened to me with Battle Clash.
It's just such a cool game when you see it on a shelf, and it wasn't
gosh.
very expensive. And you're like, this got a cool robot on it.
I still remember getting
I want
home.
you to pay the money for the Super Scope.
I still remember getting home and plugging it in and being like, oh, I can't wait to play my new game I got for cheap. And at nothing. Absolutely nothing. And my dad looked at the box. He was like, oh, do you need this Super Scope thing for it? And I was like, no. Horrible. I love light gun games. I think that we could do some more light gun games in this generation. I know that like they don't work as well now because you don't have a Wii remote and like LCD TVs.
People would probably resort to using the infrared on like the Switch Joy-Con, and that's a pretty poor set. The Wii was great for it.
Yeah.
Ghost Squad is great on the Wii.
Ghost Squad and House of the Dead.
The Wii should have had more of those. I mean, it had some good ones, but
Did you forget the name of the Master System or Genesis light gun?
I
Phaser?
think so.
Was it light phaser?
The Phaser? Yeah.
No, it was the Menacer.
No?
Oh, the
Menacer.
Genesis one was the
Interesting.
Menacer. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I just seen the name on here. I was like, Master System.
How about the Miracle Piano? How about that? How about that peripheral?
Yeah.
Miracle Piano. There you go.
It's pretty
I don't know
cheap.
if any of you had any experience with the Power Glove, but I feel like it has to be mentioned.
I have one.
Yeah, but have you
ever
used it?
played a game with it?
Yeah. It sucks.
All right. There you have it.
That's it. Matter of fact.
The show's over. It sucks.
I love how you have Game Boy tilt controls on here. I can name.
I thought they were on there. Yeah.
Yeah, I can name exactly 2 games that
That's a
use
good one.
Game Boy tilt controls, and that is Yoshi Topsy Turvy. 3 actually. There's a Kirby game too. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, Kirby.
And then
Kirby Tilt and Tumble.
and then WarioWare Twisted.
Yeah.
No, wait.
Well, and that's
Is it
Tilt and...
Yoshi Topsy Turvy
Something.
and
Yoshi.
Kirby Tilt and Tumble.
Topsy Turvy?
Yeah.
Tilt and Tumble.
It sounds right.
And then Wario. Right?
WarioWare Twisted. Yeah. Which is my
Twisted,
favorite WarioWare
And
game.
that's such an interesting one too, because they put it just it was in the game cartridge, which is so cool.
It's a big fat cartridge too. That thing's, where is it? It's around here somewhere. Here it is. This guy is huge. Look at this Game Boy Advance game. It's got a butt.
Well, the Kirby game was a Game Boy Color game, wasn't it?
Yeah, Kirby and Yoshi. Oh, Yoshi was Game Boy Advance.
Yoshi was Game Boy Advance, but Kirby was a Game Boy Color game doing that.
But actually, the reason why Twisted is so much bigger than those games is because it also has Rumble. And
Which never works.
well, unfortunately, it's very common for the Rumble to just break in these. Mine doesn't work.
All the copies I've seen, they don't work anymore.
It sucks. And you have to like solder it to get it to work again.
How important is Rumble to that game, though?
It's not. You can play it without it, but it's not the authentic experience, like.
Well, I know. I was just making sure there
like,
wasn't a micro game that required it.
No. What all it really is that it would make your Game Boy Advance like click as you turned it, almost like you were turning like a gear, It almost felt like haptic feedback in a way when it rumbled, right?
Yeah.
So it was very, very cool when it was new. And I was very disappointed when my Rumble didn't work when I first fired this one up. But, just as it is what it is, as games get older, things break. happy to own a copy because that's not something that's ever getting re-released.
So I don't know if you guys had too many like favorites just in terms of controllers you'd play almost any game with, because there were a lot of those too. You know, we talked before about like the NES Dogbone and the Advantage. In my case, I pretty much stuck with the stock thing. I more still gravitate towards the like special controllers for special games kind of approach. I still do that a lot with the PC. I have two pretty high quality controllers that primarily I use on PC games. One is a fight stick for fighting games. It's from Adark. It's actually technically got a toggle on it to be compatible with Xbox 360 or PS3 as well, but mostly I use it on PC. But got the 6 buttons for Street Fighter and a joystick that's all Sanwa components, the same stuff they use to make the arcade cabinets. And I've also got a hands-on throttle and stick for flight games, like Microsoft Flight Simulator, or Star Wars Squadrons, or Elite Dangerous. And those have been around a long time. There's a big, especially if you're into the PC gaming space, there's people who get very into that. I remember doing my research. I still find this pretty amazing. They're super expensive and in super high demand, but Thrustmaster has, their gold standard product called the Warthog, which is literally a replica of what is used to fly A-10 fighter jets. It costs like $700.
Oh my gosh.
Retail.
And I bet they sell a ton of them
more
too.
Than that to actually find one. But I mean, it is like people swear by the Warthog. They're like, this is the best stick you could buy. It's worth it. And I'm like, yeah, but I could buy a PS5 for that much.
I have a question for
flight simulators for that cost.
I have a question for anybody in the sound of my voice. I want an arcade stick that will plug into my TurboGrafx Mini and just work. I have Googled it, and I don't appear to have found any solutions. What? Oh, it's USB, but that's not the problem. The problem is that, like, there's a whole like Reddit thread where people are trying different arcade sticks, and they're like, "Well, this one doesn't calibrate right, or this one doesn't work, and like this one might work in this mode, but you have to like program it on your PC first." I just want an arcade stick that works with my freaking TurboGrafx Mini. Most of those games are arcade games.
Or at least if somebody makes like a dongle that could make any USB controller work on it. Because they've been making those for Switch. I just don't know that there's a market for it for the Mini.
Well, I'm the market, so somebody find one for me.
Hold on, 8BitDo makes a TurboGrafx wireless controller. I wonder if you can use that dongle for something else.
Maybe. I mean, it would just have to be, I don't want to buy something and have it not work. I need somebody to confirm that it works. And that's the problem.
You want somebody else to buy it and make sure that it doesn't work.
Yeah. Somebody with a YouTube channel who gets money for doing it. Like, I'm not made of money.
If I had, well, you might be able to just reach out to 8BitDo and see what they say.
Yeah,
They're usually pretty good about not caring about like, if you have an alternative use you want to try to use their products for, they're usually on board for like all kinds of things.
Honestly, I'm just shocked that for all the Googling I've done, I have not come up with a solution. Like, I can't be the only one who, I don't know. It's just weird.
I would test it, but I don't have a TurboGrafx Mini.
Yeah, it's up to
those dongles are like $20.
It's up to me and Sam.
They're not expensive.
It's up to Sam and I. We're gonna do it. We're gonna figure it out.
Maybe I'll figure something out.
You guys want to jump into some of our community comments? The question that I posed to the community was, I want to hear about the weirdest third-party controller you've ever used. And so we'll go around the horn and read some of these off. John, you want to go first with Fight Crab Fanatic?
Sure. He says the Steam controller had a trackpad instead of a right thumbstick, and the pad had to be edited for every game on Steam. The trackpad had a cool haptic feedback.
Yeah, the Steam Deck also has 2 trackpads, which is cool.
I was honestly very curious about the Steam controller. I kind of wanted one, but I heard enough people say they didn't like it that I lost interest pretty fast.
Opted out.
I've held one before, and it's very weird. I've never used it for anything. I'll do the next one. We've got Wondrous Will, who says, I've used the Onimusha Katana for the PS2. I remember it somehow being better than I expected, but not good enough to use a second time. Fortunately, it wasn't mine. It made it for a very cool display piece, though. Yeah, so this is a katana-shaped controller for the PS2, which I believe also used motion controls, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah. I don't know if it did or not.
Did it just like have buttons on it too?
I'm looking at pictures of it.
I mean, the PS2 didn't have any way to use motion control.
No, but you could have just mapped the controller stick movement to the, to movement.
Now you got me curious.
Actually, I may be wrong because this definitely has 2 sticks and a D-pad on it.
That's what I was going to say. I thought it was more like how the chainsaw controller was, where it's just shaped like a...
Well, it's not even shaped like it's literally a stick with buttons on it, so that's super weird. But the display is very nice. It has like a sheath. So that's cool. Sam, you want to do Spider Shan's comment?
Yeah. So Spider Shan says, do those Wii lightsaber Wiimote holders count? Not really controllers themselves. And then he also adds, I've always wanted a Dragon Quest slime controller.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on just Wii peripherals.
Everybody had a steering wheel for Mario Kart.
Steering wheel. And at some point, everybody bought like the tennis racket, baseball bat. Like,
I never had those. I did have one of the gun ones.
Oh yeah. Those were awesome.
Those were actually pretty cool.
Those were great.
Because they had like a little lever that would, it was basically just a little lever that would connect the trigger so that when you pulled the trigger, it would press down the B button.
It's just like the crossbow training came with that blaster.
But this was a third party one.
Yeah, look at this guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Look at this guy. It's even got a plug for the nunchuck that plugs into the back there.
Yep.
And I'm with Shannon here. I have always wanted a DQ slime controller, and I probably will buy one. Like, that's probably the next controller I'm going to buy.
I'm honestly shocked you don't own one, Sam. John. You're
I know.
I'm going to go play some Ghost Squad tonight now. Pew, 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 pew. That's great. Nerf actually made one of these too. The Wii remote holder.
Yeah, Nerf made a lot of Wii stuff.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Their game was terrible, unfortunately, but they had cool peripherals. Chris HL94 says, I wouldn't call it weird, but I loved the NES Advantage growing up. It was the real arcade feeling that I enjoyed the most. The rapid fire A and B buttons were great as well. I would unleash a hail of fireballs playing any of the Mario games. I didn't have an Advantage when I was like young, but I did buy a Super Advantage later in life. And I enjoyed it quite a bit, especially with like Turtles in Time and beat 'em ups and stuff like that. Were a lot better to play with the joystick, with the arcade
stick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thumbs hurt from the controller with Turtles in Time. For some reason, my D-pad thumb always hurts when I play Turtles in Time. I don't know why. Sam, you want to do Octorok?
Yeah. Adam Octorok says, this one's a little bit out there, and it might be a loose fit, but a family friend of ours in the 80s had a Captain Power set, complete with the spaceships and multiple corresponding VHS tapes. It's crazy to think about now, but the ships were basically equal parts toy and light gun controller that worked similarly to the NES Zapper. But there was no game console. The ships would interact with certain elements contained within the video, playing from the tapes. The ships even had action figure in the cockpit that would eject and fly across the room if you lost the mission. It seems really archaic now, but as a 5-year-old, it was like magic.
I want to know how that worked. Like as a VHS tape?
I totally remember these things.
It's crazy. John, you want to read Flightsy's comment?
Sure. Flightsy says, I'm afraid I don't have a fun story for this one. The only third-party controllers I've used are fake GameCube controllers, where the only notable thing was that the analog stick wore out really quick.
That was, I think, GameCube, Xbox, PS2 generation was kind of the last time when third-party controllers were almost across the board terrible. Like,
the mini Mad Catz
exactly
GameCube controller that's like even half the size of that.
Terrible. I can't believe the GameStop branded controllers were just nasty, man.
Junk. Yeah.
So this is an odd digression, but the fourth N64 controller that my family owned was an off-brand. I think it was EA branded, actually. And it was EA blue. It had like a weird finish on it that just felt weird. I don't know what they coated it with.
It didn't have the full sticks on the side, right?
Yes.
It had they're kind of like nubs for lack of.
But the main thing I remember it for is that ours was for some reason perpetually sticky. And so it was the one you gave to your friend that you didn't like.
Hey, how about
it was the Player 4 controller.
Do you guys remember somebody made a controller for the N64 called the Super Pad, and it was supposed to look like a normal controller, and like, you remember that one?
Yeah, it was supposed to look more like a traditional controller.
Yeah, but it was just terrible. It was horribly uncomfortable.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
My cousin and I had a N64 controller that was very similar to the EA. It was probably made by the same company. EA probably just put their name on it, but very similar to that one. It has like the two outside parts of the stick are nubs like on the side, but the Z button broke on it, and we taped a Lego to it to work as the Z button. And that was the same thing that people that came over to play games with us always got that. Yeah.
I had kind of a cool third-party N64 controller that was all clear, transparent, and it had a metal stick, and it felt a little girthier than a normal 64 controller. I have to try to find one someday because I loved that controller, man. It had turbo. Yeah, and I really, really liked it.
Well, Skinny Matt has one more comment for us. Epix made a joystick. We used these for the C64. It looks funny, but man, was it comfortable. The button placement was great, and it was easy to hold. ESL orally good.
Was it really good?
It was really good while playing Summer Games and Summer Games 2 on the Commodore. FYI, they made one for the NES 2.
Yeah, he sent a picture with that one, and it's all black with red stripes on top, and it looks ergonomic. It looks like a nice little controller you could hold with the joystick on top. I think I've seen these before at my retro game store that I used to work at. Yeah.
Did either of you two have the 64 controller that had the dial on it that was used for racing games?
I definitely didn't.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, it has like a little dial on the top that you turn left and right to steer.
Oh, I remember this. It's not a controller. It looks like a stick, and at the top it's like just the center of the controller, right?
Yeah.
The Ultra Racer 64.
That's it, yeah. That thing was junk too.
I think this was on PlayStation as well. PlayStation had a version of this, PS1.
I'm honestly surprised that they didn't wind up making more peripherals that interfaced with the controller pack at the back of the N64 controller. I wonder if there were plans. I mean, there's a lot with the N64 that I think had to be scrapped.
Well, there was.
It just wasn't
doing
like the disk drive was basically scrapped. A lot of games planned for the disk drive got scrapped.
Well, they had a memory card, rumble pack, a transfer pack.
That's pretty much it for first party stuff. That was all.
It's just interesting that was a stock feature of the controller, and I mean, I guess Rumble was used for a lot of things, but you could have just built the Rumble in. Like they designed
the memory
modular
memory pack was the memory pack was the
memory
thing.
cards.
Like a lot of games use the memory cards.
That's true.
Which I was actually just talking about this with a buddy of mine.
Not a lot of games.
There's a lot of games that use the memory card.
I don't know. Like I remember Turok. I guess like a lot of sports games.
Turok, Goldeneye, Perfect Dark.
Goldeneye didn't use the memory card at all.
Yeah, it did.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you could save your character stuff on it, couldn't you?
Is that Perfect Dark? Maybe.
Or maybe it was Perfect Dark. Gauntlet Legends used the memory card for your saves. There's lots of games that used it. But we were talking about the transfer pack when you're playing Pokemon Stadium. If you barely even like jiggle your controller, it will lose connection and like totally reset all your progress. It was so poorly designed.
Ugh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Third parties came out with some cool stuff for that. Like for the most part, the only thing they could do that was different was have a Rumble pack with a slot in the back, so you could use both the Rumble pack and the and your memory card.
Yeah, somebody had a combo one that was both a memory card and a Rumble pack.
Oh, really? Yeah. That was what third parties were doing mostly. I had one of those. It wasn't bad. And I mentioned this.
I challenge you this, Sam.
What?
Think of something that I was going to say. I'll challenge Sam to try to, by the next episode, to try to think of a use that he would wish that the Nintendo 64 would have had on its controller using that port.
Oh man, I don't know.
You got a whole week to think about it.
I mean, whatever the Wii did, like throw a Guitar Hero controller on the back of it and put turn your 64 controller into a guitar instead of the strum. You have the stick and you just flick the stick and that's your strumming on your guitar.
Or an ocarina. It could be you play Ocarina of Time and you plug your ocarina into
you blow into it.
64 controller and you finger the holes.
There you go. N64 camera. You plug a camera into the back of your controller. And Mario
that's probably exists somewhere in the archives.
Yeah, somewhere. Well, guys, I think that about wraps up our controller chat, part 1, because there's so much you could go into. We didn't even scratch the surface.
We talked a little bit about the Wii, but I mean, the Wii is kind of a big topic.
We got to hit the Wii. We got to hit more portables too.
And the DS.
Yeah.
Or even the Wii U.
Mm-hmm. Wii and Wii U for sure. And Switch. I mean, we could talk Switch too. There's lots of cool stuff for the Switch. But for now, we're going to close that out and we'll go over to our community corner, community couch, and answer a quick question, and then we'll wrap her up. So stay tuned and we'll do that real quick. Welcome back. We just got one question from our good friend Fight Crab Fanatic in our Discord. He says, big question that can be answered right now or over the air. But we're going to do both. What does your spouse say when you say, honey, I want to buy insert $200 to $300 system? Like when the Switch...
The early 2000s, like you can't buy a $200, $3 system almost now.
Switch Lite, $200. Yeah. Like if the Switch Pro, they announce a Switch Pro and it's $400 or whatever. How do you handle that with your spouse, John?
For the most part, I don't communicate a whole lot of my smaller stuff that I purchase, but if it's something that's, like he's saying, like if it's a new console, I usually communicate that and see what's going on. And I don't want to buy something like that, and then she's planning on buying something that's similar price.
Yeah,
try to separate those out a little bit, and that's usually the only reason.
We have our like budgeted fun money, and then I also will like flip games, so she doesn't really care what I buy as long as I'm not using like household money for it, because we're pretty well budgeted, or we try to be. So that's kind of how we handle it. Like, I don't care what she buys with her fun money. She doesn't care what I buy with my fun money. And we just kind of keep it that way. Like, if there's some big thing and I needed some extra money for it, we could have a conversation and be like, hey, I really want to buy this. I don't have the money right now. And, we'd see where it goes. But I've never had to do that. Like, if I can't afford something with my own fun money, then I just won't buy it until I save up for it. Or like with the OLED, I didn't have the money, but I was like, hey, let me buy the OLED since it's limited, and then I'll sell my Switch and we'll like pay back the family account. And that's what we did. So so we just kind of talk about it. Sam, you're not married, but
Yep.
What do you do if you want to buy
easy.
What do you do if you want to buy a $400 system?
I don't. No.
You just communicate it with yourself and then rationalize it.
Hey, Sam, can I buy this? Sure, Sam.
Oh, I mean, it's more a question of like what I need to do. And right now, I'm fortunately in the place where like if I really want, my inclination is to talk myself out of something first. So I'm naturally like actually pretty stingy a lot of the time. But as I have gotten to a point where I have more money to spend, that's gotten a little bit harder to do. But it really, on the personal level, it more comes down to like, okay, well, like, is this really worth it? Because like, am I gonna, I've pretty much landed on like, I'm not going to buy another like modern system because I just wouldn't have time to actually play it at all. Like I have more than enough between Switch and PC and all the retro stuff. It's just not justifiable to myself. If there was ever anybody else, I don't know how that would, work out. But I mean, at some level, you probably have to come to some like budget agreement, I would think. Just because like there's going to be things that like maybe both of you want it, but one of you wants it more, right? So you got to make sure there's a way of like making sure that feels fair for everybody,
Man, if I was in Sam's boat, I don't know what my collection would look like today. It'd be worse than it is now.
Oh my gosh.
But I can remember back when I was a kid, there was a thing my brother would do, and this particularly true of games because that was like the most expensive things that was what we were saving up money for from allowance and stuff. And my brother would, he was pretty clever. He would just try to convince me to buy a game he wanted. He would try to convince me that I wanted it too, so that I would buy it, and he could spend his allowance on whatever else. Sometimes it worked.
Play the game.
Eventually, I caught on.
Little brother stuff.
This is awesome.
I get that. I get it. Yeah, I think bottom line, communicate with your spouse. And if you don't want to have to communicate with your spouse, then work out a budget. And that's what we do. Because she could not care at all about video games in any way. So this saves her the conversation with me.
Yeah, just don't use the old adage that it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah, that usually doesn't work with finances in a family. That's not a good idea.
It also doesn't work with borrowing money, especially.
No.
It's called stealing.
That's called stealing, yeah. Hey, I took this money. Sorry. That's going to just about do it for this episode, guys. Anything else you guys want to say? Any final thoughts? No.
The N64 controller is not that bad.
No, I'm an apologist. I love that controller. Like, it's comfy. I don't mind it at all. So anybody...
Something I was... Oh, go for it, Dan.
Anybody who's like, oh, it's horrible. It's like, ugh, like, why? Like, you're holding it wrong. Just figure it out. Learn to use your hands.
Something I was thinking about that's might be fun. I don't know how it would go over in a predominantly Nintendo community, but to do like a bracket for the controller similar to what like Drew and John are doing over there to see what, you know, our community voted as the best controller.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Fun too.
A lot of Nintendo fans in our midst, but I mean, you know, we'll just see how it lands.
Just see how they like it when I pit Nintendo against Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly.
Choose
GameCube versus Super Nintendo.
Oof. Yeah, we don't want to do that right off the bat.
That'd be a tough one.
That's the final round.
That's how it's going to end up. You know it is. But anyway.
For the meme votes that drive the Power Glove to the top.
Oh,
yeah, if there was a block controller, it would win.
Yeah. Well, not yet. Anyway, thanks for listening to the RetroLogic podcast. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, check me out on Twitter and Instagram at RetroLogic Games. You're also welcome to jump into our friendly and 100% non-toxic Discord community. Link to that is in my Twitter bio. You can get all the RetroLogic things over at retrologic.games. If you have any questions, or if you get lost, or if you just want to know how to join the Discord, or find me on Twitter, or read the blog, or check out any of our other podcasts, all that's at retrologic.games. So go check it out. Guys, that's all we got. So we'll see y'all next week.
Alrighty. Bye now.
Goodbye.